So on the second part, we're talking about how do we move from being self-centered to God-centered. How do we let go of this world that we have created that hasn't given us any good, rather takes away from us? The fundamental answer that all who seek, whether we acknowledge it or not, is this: how can self-centeredness, that is avarice, striving, lust for prestige, be changed into God-centeredness? Because at some point in our lives, we get to that realization that we can do better. We need something more than what we have. So we keep seeking. In the hearts of every man and woman is that seeking for something. Seeking, whether we are comfortable with what we are seeking or not, we seek. We keep asking that question. So the point is, how do we move from these lust for prestige, for avarice, get it all, for power? How do we now turn it and change into God's centeredness, going back to the original intent, which is making God the standard of our choices, the standard, the nature and the condition of our lives. Not recognizing others as persons is a fundamental structure of self-centeredness. Because that's where it begins. If once we begin to shut that reality that we are all created in the image and likeness of God, if we shut that reality out, then what we do at that point is that we'll make ourselves we'll make ourselves to the point where life begins to revolve around us. And anything that comes to oppose that becomes a threat. Even us. Sometimes we become a threat to ourselves, because the conscience that speaks very silently begins to remind us now that life doesn't revolve around you. Even when we fall, when we make mistakes, when life comes crashing on us, we say, no, we got this. We'll begin to find another escape. And sometimes we escape to the things even worse than where we want to run away from. So the self-centered person sees only himself endowed with the dignity of personhood. The German, in centuries past, when before all the abuses of the human rights and the dignity of the persons began with a group of people that came up with the idea that only few people are the true blood, that others are not. They began to formulate, for instance, those that posited that only the West have reason and the other people have intuition. So they have no capacity to even grasp or understand certain concepts, even the concept of God. So if you read how religion or Christianity came to certain parts of the world, it's just that mindset. Let go, crash and displace all that they hold dear and trust or push what we think they need. So when we begin to have that mindset that only us have the dignity of personhood, then the gift of presence becomes a struggle for us. Because how can you be present to the one that you do not think have the dignity of a person? How do you do that? It's not possible. So we must transcend from that reality that only us have the dignity of the human person. That's what we hope to achieve. So we begin to see others as object for their use. We see that in workplaces, we see that in the policies, we see that in even what we criticize, even what we even support. One that people don't want to talk about, but I will talk about it, is when misfortune happened to somebody who hold a different political view. Then we are cited. An instance is Paul Pelosi, who was attacked and beaten. People jumped. He deserves it, he does this, he does that. And that, my question when that happened was, and I saw a lot of good in their own judgment, Christians, share it on their Facebook post, on their social media. And then I simply asked, what has happened to respect for our elders? What has happened to our humanity? That a human person was abused, that what we jumped was to applaud such abuse because they hold a different political view from what we think they ought to hold. So that's what happens when we shut our eyes from that common humanity in which all are created in the image of God. And that was why I asked you to reflect on the disease of self-centeredness and the symptoms. You see, the disease, that particular instance, is not about, nobody's questioning that we have lost it, respect for human life, sacredness of life, and the respect for others. Now we are talking about the symptoms. Oh, they have been killing babies, they have been doing that, and all that. So you see that what self-centeredness does is to shut us away from our common humanity and to start our judgment of what is wrong and what is right. It clouds our discernment. Self-centeredness clouds our discernment. Discernment is not just to know what is good and what is evil, but it's the courage to hold firm to what is good, even when evil is done to us. Is the ability to stand firm, courageous in the face of evil and say, I have discovered that life is sacred. It doesn't matter whose life is involved. I will condemn evil for what it is. So, things can have neither possessions, power, nor honor when we begin to objectify them. When a person in the horizon is recognized and interiorly accepted as a person, avarice will change into readiness to share and give. It becomes selflessness. The journey begins with the heart, the seat of love, the seat of the will to action. That we must tell our hearts what we think we know must move to our hearts to begin to appropriate, accept, and believe that life is more than what we see, that life is more than what we can comprehend, that God is the creator who created everything and says, and all is good. All is good, even those that make the wrong choices. That they make the wrong choices does not give us the right to shut out their humanity. Because what the church must and what we all must preach and teach is the capacity for change. The capacity for change. And that the self-centered person does not believe in the capacity for change. So the journey as it begins from the heart moves our power striving to change into our ability and willingness to serve, not to be served. Our ability to give it all, to serve, in very unassumingly serve for the glory of God. Our loss for honor makes room for respect for and recognition of other people. It's not just us. Anyone that thinks that they know it all is the easiest way to just decay. Because what they do, they will stop learning. Anybody that thinks that they know it all is only dealing with their self-centeredness. So the self-centered person can become other-centered. Self-centered becoming other-centered. So it is not the ego that makes first place, but the encounter with other. So in our movement from self-centeredness, we must let our ego be converted. It has to undergo some deliverance sessions. Our ego has to undergo some liberation. There has to be some anointing oil poured on it to let it relax. Life does not begin and end with you. To take us to that point of encounter, that point of presence, that point of looking at each other and say, thank God you are in my life. Thank God I've met you. Even when they drive you crazy, because they help you to grow in your virtues. You see, nobody is useless. Either they are helping you to grow or they are reminding you of your struggles and your weaknesses. So, why not believe in the capacity for change? Either they drive you crazy and then you get mad and then give it back at them the way you think they deserve. And then in that your silence of the heart, that quiet moment, you just sit and remind how foolish you allowed another person to tell you how to behave. You see how life works. You've given another person power over your emotion. You've given people power to even control your appetite. You've given people power even to control your sleep. You're still struggling with your ego because you think it's about you, it's about me. It's not about us. It's their problem. They are sick. It's not you. It's just that the demon in you is clashing with the demon in them, in themselves, and then waiting for the who wins. Let them win. It's strength. Let them win. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to say anything. You know, what I do well, I ignore a lot if you're driving me crazy. I won't go back and forth with anyone driving me crazy, or who, once you've said it, once you've done it, that you've seen nothing good in me, I just let you enjoy that thought. I don't have to feed it. I don't have to fuel it. If it's too much, I block you. It's not arrogance, it's not pride, but it's picking your battles. You have to pick your battles in such a way that nobody have power over your life to tell you how to respond, how to react, how to get mad, when to get mad. Once you begin, it never ends. Because what happens is that once they drop that and then you respond, they say, yeah, I got him, I got her. And then they come back and say more things worse than what they said before. And then you respond. And then they come back again. It never ends. So you see, our ego has to undergo some deliverance, some liberation to make way for the gift of presence. For the gift of presence. So since our relationship with fellow human beings parallels with that of God, other-centeredness, the other person is mirrored in how attentive we are to God. The way we relate with one another mirrors how attentive we are to God. Because the commandments summarized in two is love the Lord your God with all your heart and your neighbor as yourself. Your neighbor as yourself. So it's from God, your attention to God, which translates how attentive you are to your fellow human person. But it's important to talk about love. Love is not compromise. Love is not likeness. Love doesn't enable evil. Love liberates. Love is life-giving. Love can be tough. Did you hear the last one? Love can be tough. And I tell you how tough it can get. That granddaughter, that daughter, that son, that keep making wrong choices, that friend, that keep making wrong choices. And every time they come, oh, if you love me, you will still give me money for this. Or if you love me, you won't kick me out. Or if you love me, and then you say, oh, your conscience, that guilt moment start playing out. They got you. They have used that key, the emotional sabotage key. They have won. And then you say, I love you, but I can't enable you not to grow. That is tough love. That is tough love. Because you want them to grow. Some people grow better when they go through pain. They figure it out. They realize. I tell my friends, I don't know how, these families with little kids, how they do it. Now I have a relative that visits with their kid. And some days I say, oh, it's enough now, you guys can go. So, cannot go. I've had enough, But you have to figure out whether your love is either helping people to grow or keeping them where you met them. If we are not helping them to grow, you need to revisit what you call love. You need to visit whether your ego is actually liberated, whether you are just massaging your ego, whether because they are dependent on you makes you feel okay. It's something we need to figure out. Because there are people, and that's the difference between philanthropy and charity. You become philanthropic when you just do it to show that you got it. You are superior. They are not. And many of you can think of some charities in different nations, in different places, that people have given for how many years, yet it looks like you are sinking, you're just trying to fill a hole with water from the ocean. The question becomes, do we give love to massage our ego, or do we give love to help them grow? And that's the question that we ought to figure out if we must transcend from self-centeredness to God-centeredness. The reason is simple. It's simple. God with the Israelites, this is the people he chose to be his own. These are people he made covenant, everlasting covenant. And his covenant is never dependent on the people, but on his integrity. Yet he allowed them to walk through the desert, to figure it out. But he was still with them, walking with them. So that we understand when we are confusing likeness and love, infatuation and love. When we are confusing our need to help people grow and help ourselves to grow and walk toward God, or when we are walking toward ourselves. The story of the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve wanted to be too independent so that everything will walk toward them, not them helping every other thing to walk toward God. They were trying to massage their ego. So when the devil brought the suggestion, did he say you should not? Not is there God or not? So sometimes the things that we hold on to might seem like love, but it's not actually love. It's just suggestions to help us and to just make us feel okay. Oh, they have called me again. They need $5. Oh, they have been kicked out of their house. They are coming back. Then you feel okay. Oh, they are calling me again. They have no food. Oh, they are doing this. They are doing that. So you see that we can either get stuck in our search for the way that leads us back to God, or we can let ourselves take that step and make that journey. So when avarice becomes the ability to share with others, it becomes our surrender in our relationship with God. That God becomes the standard of our relationship with other people. Because that's another struggle we have. When we want to love people, it depends on our strength and ability, instead of letting our love for God inform how we love other people. So we get stuck, we struggle, we get frustrated. We don't gain what we think we ought to gain because we love. And then we abuse and misuse that word love. And then people begin to manipulate us. People begin to confuse us. And you see that in the society today, where, oh, if you love me, you will open it, you will accept my lifestyle. Who has made that lifestyle and love to be the same? They are not synonymous. Lifestyle is your choice. Love is God's commandment. And they are not the same. I do not have to accept your choices, your lifestyle, because I love you. I love you because God has commanded me to love you. And I refuse to choose your choices or your lifestyle or to applaud your lifestyle because what you have chosen is in total contradiction with what I know about universal love. So be fair to me. Be fair to us. You know, these people, oh, you guys are this, you guys are whatever they call it, just to make us feel guilty. And we will not. We will never feel guilty for being firm to the truth that we did not create. To the truth. An instance is marriage. Marriage is between a man and a woman, period. There's no qualification. Period. If people are calling and doing what they want to call same sex, that can be a relationship, not marriage. And you don't need to defend yourself for saying that truth. And you do not need to compromise your love just to be accepted. You don't need to be afraid of offense, because offense will come however you say it. So those are some of the things that we do when we make ourselves and create our own world in our dream vision. So we see that our power striving will give way to willingness to serve our neighbor, which becomes worship of God, adoration and praise in our relationship with God. The Gospel of Matthew chapter 25, which I call the scandal of judgment, because the two groups of people, none of them realized when they were helping or not helping. Those that Christ says, I was hungry, you fed me, I was this, I was that. They ended up asking, when did we see you? Those that did not, those who were waiting for Jesus to come down before they go hand him over some cake. Those who were waiting for Jesus to come down in a dramatic way and refused to even pray for those who are less fortunate, that God will provide for them. For what did they ask? Lord, why did you disappoint us? You should have announced that you were coming. You should have put it on the radio and on the newspaper so that we will prepare and bring you a cup of water in a cup plated with gold. Why did you do this to us? And simply God will shock all of us. Whatever you do to the least of my brothers, that you do unto me. What has happened in the two categories of people? The first group have allowed their ego to be liberated, and the other persons were still waiting for their ego to be massaged. They were still want to feel good, that they walked up to Jesus and gave him the best cool cup of water with ice or lemonade, ice lemonade from Chick-fil-A. You know, they are waiting to do that, and the Lord surprised them. So the desire for prestige, which turns into respect for other people, becomes adoration and praise in our relationship with God. And that is important for us. In a time where diversity that ought to be a strength is posing as a challenge, this becomes a challenge for us. That in an experience that you have no clue to, that you don't become quick to judge it. You know, like something you've no experience about, that you don't be quick to judge it, that you respect and honor people who are different with different experience and views. A lot of things we do which the media and the politics has caused is that we have become quick to judge an experience we have no idea about. We have become so quick to condemn a people that we have no clue to the story behind their mistakes. That we have become so quick to condemn a people that we cannot even walk in their shoes. And we lost our empathy. We lost our humanity. We lost our kindness. Kindness, by the way, has this link, etymology, root from kin, K-I-N. That we are good because we are king's men and women. We have a common origin, God. If we understand that we have the same origin, we are king's people, king's men and women, that even when someone is sharing an experience you have no clue, instead of being quick to tell them how they need to handle that experience that you don't understand, can we just look at them and tell them, I can't even imagine, I don't understand your experience, but I'll pray for you. Or just shut up instead of judging. Instead of being quick to condemn them, quick to send them to hell, quick to discard them, can we just not say anything? If we can't even say the simplest thing, I'll keep you in prayers. I'll pray for you. I don't understand what you are going through. I may not even comprehend. I'll just pray for you. So there are three pairs of poles between self-centeredness and other-centeredness, which we've already mentioned. And the first is avarice, which has to become ability to give and share. And that makes us to be submissive to God. The second is thirst for power, will become readiness to serve. It becomes our service of God. God inviting us to participate in His mission. And how do we participate in His mission if we are not willing and humble enough to serve those He created in His image and likeness? So number three is the thirst for prestige, which is respect. Respect, which is the praise and adoration of God. We adore God by the way we relate with people. If people become object, we're invariably, indirectly, thinking that God is an object, because we are all created in His image and likeness. Here, that journey will help us to refocus. So it will switch our orientation and switch our vision. Because at the same time as Christ refocuses on God's law by recalculating it, readdressing it, making it more concrete in the logic of divine love, Jesus here proclaims a no less radical extension of the recipients of that love. He extends those who ought to receive that love, not just those who come to our church, but extending also to those who come to our food pantry, to those who meet in Walmart, who are making calls and doesn't care that another person is by the side. Sometimes I go to Walmart just to enjoy myself. Because you see, everything you need to see, you get it in Walmart. People who move as if they are the only one there, they just make noise and just move around, jump in your front. But in the tradition handed down to him, the second great commandment says, love your neighbor as yourself. But this retained a certain ambiguity. It's not too clear. Love your neighbor as yourself. Because it poses a lot of questions. Who is my neighbor? How do I love myself? Do I even love myself? Do I even know how to love myself? For instance, if you've known anybody who have experienced domestic abuse and they've stayed for a long time, it's so quick to judge from afar. But why can't you go run away? Why can't you leave that abusive relationship? Why can't, there are a lot of why can't you? Because we are judging from afar. But if you understand the damage of domestic abuse, that even takes away the ability to recognize what true love means. That they begin to feel and believe that abuser is the only person that can manage them. But it's easy, you judge from afar. And I know that probably I would be doing the same if I'm not in the field that I am. I've dealt with clients that you're wondering, you just can't understand. But it's not easy. So when the commandment says, love your neighbor as yourself. That person that doesn't even understand or believe in the power of true love, is that person capable of loving you? If God doesn't become the object of his or her love. If that person, that all that they have experienced is hate, lack of love, lack of attention, lack of care, no kindness. If they don't transcend that reality to make God the source and the subject of their love, do you think they are capable of loving you as they love themselves? And that's why I've told people, and I tell you, you cannot get healing from the person or the thing that hurt you. Let me say that again. It is impossible to be healed or expect healing from the person or the thing that hurt you. Because if they are capable of healing you, they will not hurt you in the first place. So that when someone does something to you and you are giving up your power to enjoy and be happy and giving it to them because you're expecting them to say sorry, you're expecting them to apologize, you're expecting them to say, oh, I did this, I did that. It's waste of energy and waste of time. There's no healing from there. So you see that Christ wants to play some, make this clear for us. Because love your neighbor will return some ambiguity. For it includes the implied question, which has remained unanswered. Even in the Gospel of Luke chapter 10, verse 29, you say, who is my neighbor? The story of the Samaritan, the Good Samaritan, that even the priest didn't want to get close so that I will not be stained, After all, I have mass at 10, so I don't want to do any good so that I won't, the Jesus that gave all for the poor will not get angry. That's our mindset sometimes. We are so one-way focused that we forget, we jump those created in the image and likeness of God because we are pursuing the God in whose children we have overlooked. So you see in that Gospel of Luke Gospel, chapter 10, verse 29, that question still rebounds today. Who is my neighbor? In the original text of the original context of the Torah, the 5 first books, the concept neighbor was identified with the sons of your people, which means fellow Israelite. So you see why that story is so powerful, the story of the Good Samaritan. It was the Samaritan that has nothing. So you see that the goodness of God, when God becomes the center of our lives, we break the protocols of culture. We break the protocol of social barriers. We jump protocols for the glory of God. So here, the first instance of a neighbor is a fellow Israelite. You read that in Leviticus chapter 19, verse 18. Also, it could refer more specifically to one's kin, your brother. If you understand, in my culture, we have what we call kindred, people within my region, within my neighborhood. And we are connected through ancestor. So we talk about kin, your brother. And in my culture, cousin, we don't normally use it. Everybody's a sister or brother. We're like the Israelites. There's no brother. There's no cousin, nephew, niece, this, that. It's because we are one. There's a way our worldview is different from the West. So cousin, brother, sister, brother. There's no cousin brother. There's no cousin sister. Those are West of language. We don't have time to West language. So here, the second instance you read in Leviticus 19, verse 17, is your brother, your kinsman. It can also be widened to include resident alien, the resident alien, which means people, foreigners who comes to your neighborhood. And you read this in Leviticus chapter 19, verse 34. But in the later Jewish tradition, both restricted and expanded definitions of neighbor are found. And they are found. You see that in that story of the Good Samaritan. That Christ used that to talk about the expansion of what neighborhood represents. And that is the gift of our faith. That the gift of our faith, that it walks us from our self-centeredness to God-centeredness, where everybody becomes your neighbor. The humanity becomes your world, and kindness becomes your language. You see that it has liberated us. Instead of living in a world that we have created, that has kept us limited, closed-minded, to liberate us, that everybody has become our neighbor. So we'll see that in any case, the debate itself implicitly divides up human beings into two groups, as is brought out in Jesus' explanation in the commandment in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapter 5. Verse 43. You have heard that it was said, you love your neighbor and hate your enemy. Your ego, your self-centeredness says, hate those who pretend they don't like us. So keep them. They are others. But do good to those who show that they love you. It was said, remember, we're walking from our self-centeredness, the world that we have created, the world that we created outside the original intent. Now we are walking back to where God becomes our standard, where God becomes the choice that guides our actions. So you see that the commentaries unfairly point out that the command to hate one's enemy, who in all probability, incidentally, was not a personal enemy. Because sometimes we have community hate. You know, the media flashes one news about one person, because we have given up our ability to think. You know, critical thinking now is something that is vanishing, because we have given up our great power to critically think and analyze. We've given it to media, we've given it to TV, we've given it to TV shows, because sometimes people leave out what they watch in TV shows without thinking whether this is a fiction or a real story. And then lastly, we've given our power for critical thinking to politicians. And now what has happened? We are creating enemies. We are moving away from the intent of the God who created us in his image and likeness, and says, and all that he has made is good. So we'll see that Jesus puts his finger here on the eternal human tendency to separate people into two classes. And that's what he wants to break. He wants to break that ability for us to create two classes, those that we will relate to. And by the way, there are two forms, two things that guides our every human relationship. The first is friends, and the other is friendliness. Not everybody will be your friend. So don't kill yourself, don't punish yourself thinking that everybody has to be your friend. It's not possible. But what you are called to do is to be friendly. And what is friendliness? Friendliness means being kind. It doesn't have to be friends. You don't owe that to anybody. You choose those you would like to be friends with you. But make effort to be friendly to everybody. And know your limit. Know what your spirit and your heart can accommodate. There are people you cannot be friends with, period. There's no argument about it, because your personalities are different. So trying to do, if I don't do this now, they would think I'm not their friends. You're punishing yourself. You're punishing yourself. So don't do it. Don't punish yourself. So, but Christ comes to liberate us from this human tendency to separate people into two classes. So Advent becomes an intentional journey, moment of growing in selflessness. That's what Advent does. It gives us that opportunity to, as we wait, ask ourselves, what will pose an obstacle to the incarnation of Christ becoming a reality in my life, in your life? When the Son of God comes, will there be space in this world that I have created in my imaginary vision? Will there be space? So that's what we will go through. Because without being intentional, we will all be stuck in ourselves. So being a Christian means an invitation to imitate the behavior of our God. The newness of the gospel consists in belief in a God whose love is all-inclusive. But we have to be careful in that all-inclusive. You know, we have a music in the church that sings, all are welcome, all are welcome. But when all are welcome, all they need to do is to submit to the one who has invited us. And let the one conform us to his image, the image of the invisible God, Christ himself. All are welcome, not for all to gather and force us or pressure us to change what we did not create. That is what the world is trying to do to the church, and we must not give up. We must not stop. We must not allow it. They are welcome. The love is boundless. The love is there. But do not come and ask us to change what we did not create. We did not create that marriage is between a man and a woman. We did not create it. We did not create that Christ is present, real in the Eucharist. We did not create it. We did not create that the morality and the sacraments are objective, not dependent on what I think and what I feel. I can't even change it, no matter how smart you get. All are welcome, but do not make our liturgy subjective. Liturgy must not be an act of preference. I prefer this. Is that you can do that. You prefer your bread toasted. You can do that. You prefer your egg well done. You can do that. You prefer to walk to the house. You can do that. But you cannot come to the church and start preferring, making preference. It does not work, and it will not work. So, we must also believe in the conviction that following in the footsteps of Christ, that we are capable of a non-judgmental concern for other people. We can believe it, but we will be convinced in the invitation that we are called to be God-centered. We will have a 5 minutes break and then have a discussion. The last discussion, this one is one question. And the question will be, if you have a pen, what are some obstacles in being neighbors to those we meet? What could be an obstacle to meet, to be a neighbor to those we meet? So we will have that discussion for 10 minutes. We'll take a 5 minutes break and then gather and have that discussion for 5 minutes. And then once we gather, we can have questions if anybody has a question, and then we'll make some announcements. Thank you.
Thank you,